Digital ID. Evil, lying, war criminal and demon goblin Tony Blair seeks to foist more bondage and burdens, abetted by fellow Fabian Society psychopath Keir Starmer. The glee and delight as they try to sell to us our enslavement for our benefit and convenience. They will play all the cards for this Orwellian tyranny, the pandemic, jabs, immigration, NHS, easy access etc. It is another stepping stone to a new world order. Masonic motto, Ordo a flat chow, order from chaos. Problem reaction solution. This is all for their Antichrist. And they have had it planned not years, decades or centuries in advance, but for 2000 years, so they are experts in analyzing, discussing, implementing and being snake oil salesmen through their principalities and fallen ones. Authoritarian China has their model of a social credit score which other authoritarian Antichrist powers want to emulate. The Book of Revelation prophesies for an impending new world system where rulers and their followers will be of one mind and go to destroy and war against Jesus' kingdom, will worship the same entity, be marked and not be able to buy or sell unless they have that mark. 666. What looks like a worldly, physical plan, is in reality being operated by spiritual wickedness and is manifested in the physical by servants of Satan. All prophecies have to come to pass, and there is only one way out, and he is the way, the truth and the life. John chapter 14 verse 6. Deny and reject him at your peril. It should be becoming a bit more obvious as the world descends further into deviancy, destruction, being turned upside down, especially anything biblical, and the push of lying and bad science that they are preparing and ushering something in as the world does become more Orwellian and spiritually dark in plain sight.
The technology and the digital infrastructure, I just want to emphasize how important I think that is. Because in the end, you need the data. You need to know who's been vaccinated and who hasn't been. Some of the vaccines that will come on down the line will be there'll be multiple shots. So you've got to have, for reasons to do with the healthcare more generally, but certainly for a pandemic or for vaccines, you've got to have a proper digital infrastructure, and many countries don't have that. In fact, most countries don't have that. An analysis on digital ID, which is an essential part of a modern digital infrastructure, could yield benefits not only for ease of interaction with government, but for the public finances. Though we have a little work of persuasion to do here, it has to be said.
Can I just bring you back to the plan for vaccine passports or passes? This needs buy-in from the industry, in particular the hospitality industry, and the truth is they don't like the idea.
I think you're going to find in many settings people do want to know if they're going into that setting that the people around them, if they're mixing in close quarters, have been vaccinated. What I'm not sympathetic to are people who are able to get the vaccine and just refuse to get it.
This whole argument reminds me of something going back for some years. This is ID cards by the back door, isn't it?
Look, I was then, I remain even more convinced today, particularly with biometric technology. The world will move to biometric ID, and they'll do it because in the end it's better for people. It's not about, look, the amount of information government's going to have on you is going to be minimal compared with what your local supermarket has on you. So this is a completely sensible way to go, and I think you will find right round the world that people move in this direction because it will facilitate the access to government services. And by the way, in some of the developing countries, it will cut out fraud.
Digital ID, for me, is a very big part of the future. And let me explain why. So if you take the changes you've been making at a bank, because you've become not just a bank, but also a technology company, right? And you've been using technology to change the whole way you interact with your customers. So digital ID is, for me, absolutely crucial because, for example, on COVID, what is the problem with this coronavirus? The problem is it's not a disease that's so serious that it's like the plague, right? Most people who get it will survive it. However, it's bad enough, and we all know people who've had it and had it badly enough, then you don't want to get it. So the problem is you have to lock down the entire economy in order to deal with the small number of people who get it and are going to suffer badly. A way out of this is to be able to test people several times and for people to actually have a biometric identity which can say, look, I've been tested or I've had the disease and here are my antibodies, so that life can get back to normal. So your digital ID can play a part in COVID, but also if you think of the transactions that you want to do now with your customers, it's much simpler for them if they have a digital identity. Or you take the big issue in the Western world today, which is, quite apart from COVID, I would say is worries about immigration, who has the right to be in your country, who has the right not to be. Without a form of identity, it's very hard to tell who's got a right to be in a country, who's not. So inevitably, governments are going to move in this direction. Absolutely inevitably.
Do you think the antipathy and the suspicion people had about ID cards in your era could now evaporate when you present people with it as freedom from quarantine and lockdown?
It's an obvious thing to move in the direction of digital ID because it's an enabler for people. Not just, by the way, in relation to COVID-19 and coronavirus, it's a huge enabler in respect of interaction with government. But for this purpose of the disease, yes, especially, by the way, as you get vaccination coming in, once they start coming into use, you're going to want a record of the fact you've been vaccinated. You'll want a record kept by the government of who has been vaccinated. I mean, this will be essential, again, to restoring confidence.
Technology revolution is central, and it's one of the reasons why India's done so well in these last years. Because I think, Prime Minister Modi has understood the importance of it, and your digital ID program, I think it's one of the most important programs. I keep saying to people around the world, if you want to see an example of a reform that leads to real results and shows that government can work for people, look at India's digital ID program. It's been a remarkable transformation. And, that's where, by the way, if you want to help some of the poorest countries in the world today, I think a lot of the poorest countries in the world, if they embrace technology in the right way with the right help, they don't have to replicate the legacy systems of developed countries. They can actually, in health, in education, and in the role government plays, they can bypass all of that. So technology, it's got its downsides, but it's a fact, and if we understand it and we master it properly, we can make it work for people.